My name is David Allison. I research and study consumer behavior. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, and I advise companies on how best to understand the audiences they're trying to attract and influence using new data instead of old-fashioned stereotypes. I got into what I'm doing today because I own my own branding and marketing company for a long time. So I was always dealing with demographic audience descriptions that my clients would give me, and they'd say they're trying to chase the 18 to 24-year-old male market, or this group or that group or whatever. And it always just felt a little hollow and weird, because outside of the office environment, we all know that nobody really acts their age anymore. We all know that gender roles are continuing to change every day. There's really no way to pick a rich guy out of the audience from a poor guy. And yet we somehow think inside the boardroom that those definitions, those tags, those labels are going to help us understand who we're trying to talk to and what's going to motivate them to do the things we'd like them to do. Didn't seem to make a lot of sense. So my opportunity came along when I sold my company about 3 years ago. Spent about 3 years now working on this massive research project, and we've built this database. I believe that this is going to be one of the most revolutionary discoveries in terms of audience understanding of our time. The idea behind ValueGraphics is quite simple, that we still need a demographic description of an audience for anything we're going to do. If we're going to have a restaurant, we're going to have a bar, we're going to sell flowers, we're going to build cars, it doesn't really matter what industry you're in. The very first conversation that happens is people sit around in a boardroom and they try and figure out who they're doing this for so they can make some decisions. Are we going to make it big? Are we going to make it small? Are we going to make it black? Are we going to make it white? What are we going to do with this thing? So we demographically describe a target audience, and then we try and make decisions that that target audience will like. The problem is demographics are a lousy way to predict behavior today. They may have had some validity in the past when social pressure made us all behave a certain way because of who we were, whether you were a man or a woman and how old you were. But those pressures are all gone now. We don't really have to do anything at any time for any reason except what we want to do. We get to curate our own lives. So it's time for a new system. 100,000 surveys later, we have that new system, and it's called ValueGraphics instead of demographics. It layers on top of a demographic profile and gives that demographic profile the ability to detect what it is that that audience really wants and what's going to motivate them to do the things you'd like them to do. Demographics don't do that. Only ValueGraphics do that. I believe ValueGraphics are the future because they've been the past and we just didn't know it. We didn't have a word for it. We didn't have a database to tell us how to do this. It's a basic principle of sociology, human behavior, consumer behavior, psychology, all these social sciences. They all understand that the way to determine what someone's going to do is by understanding what their values are. What we value determines what we do. So the only thing we've really done is put enough data together that we're now able to tell you what an entire audience values. So the folks who work in psychology, they've had it easy for a long time. One-on-one, we can give you a test, a Myers-Briggs test, whatever it is, any one of a number of different kinds of forms and tools and tests we can give you, and we can figure out what your values are as a human and therefore why you're behaving the way you're behaving, and see if we can't work on that and get it to where you want it to be. But to have enough data to predict that for an entire audience, we needed algorithms. We needed to be able to collect data at an enormous scale to make this actually scientifically reliable and make it valid. So that's why it's never been done before and why it's going to be the future. We've always known this. What we value, what we think is important, of course that's how we figure out what we're going to do. Of course it is. There just hasn't been a database that allowed us to do this in a commercial way before. I'm here at the RC show in Toronto to talk about ValueGraphics as it relates to the restaurant industry, and like all the keynote speeches that I give, I've gone into the database and actually pulled for Canadians who eats at restaurants, how they make their decisions, and they fall into 4 different ValueGraphic profiles. Across Canada, roughly 30% of the population eats out at a restaurant at least once a week. And of that 30%, those folks break up into 4 ValueGraphic profiles that we can identify out of the ValueGraphics database. So one of those groups we call the food and beverage adventure junkies. Now these are folks who are actually more interested in the experience than they are in the food. They're looking for things to be new and fresh and interesting and different all the time. It doesn't mean that they won't be loyal to your restaurant, but your restaurant better keep offering new stuff. They'll be the ones who are just itching to hear what the specials are today. They want to know what they haven't had yet and what the newest, weirdest ingredient is that they can possibly try. Next group I like to call the super social debt divas, and that's debt with a B, D-E-B-T. So these folks really, again, not so interested in the food. Food is, of course, it's interesting to them, but it's not the reason why they choose a restaurant. Neither is the atmosphere or the interior. What they're after is social space. They want to be in a busy place full of lots of people, preferably friends. They want to be known there. When they go out somewhere, they're choosing where they're going to feel like they get the most social hit. That's what they're after. And we call them the debt divas because they're in debt and they don't really care. They just keep doing it. It's that important to them that they don't care if it's racking up that credit card bill. They'll just keep going out and eating again and again and again because they need that socialization. They crave that. That's their gasoline that keeps them moving. Third group we can talk about are called the contented loyalists. Now these are the folks, I fit into this group, I have to admit. They've done their work, they've looked around, they've eaten at a lot of different restaurants, and they've chosen 2 or 3 that are their favorites, and now they just rotate. They just go back and forth between those 2 or 3 restaurants. They have a favorite chair in those restaurants, they have a favorite item on those menus. If something changes, they're not liking that very much. They like the fact that they're familiar there, that they are familiar with the place and the place is familiar with them. They're the ones who don't even want to look at the menu. It's actually a point of honor to them to be able to go, no, I'll just have the XYZ salad because they know the menu that well. It's like an extension of their home for these folks. And the fourth group are called the workaholic brand eaters. So these folks are out eating brands. They're not actually even eating food. All they care about is how they look while they're in that place. These are workaholics. They don't do anything socially unless it's related to work. They only care about what that restaurant says about them. That's how they're making the decision about where to go. Does this place make me look like I'm a rock star? Does it make me look humble? Does it make me look like a sporty, fun guy? Who am I trying to impress and what's the message I'm trying to signal? That's how I'm choosing the restaurant. Those 4 groups together make up an incredibly significant percentage of the folks who eat out in Canada at least once a week or more. When we look at their values, all 4 groups, let that all fade into the background. What matters to them most is number 1, personal growth, and number 2, belonging. It's the me before the we. It's actually quite fascinating that what we're looking for when we choose a restaurant is how does this make me a better person? What you need to be able to do is make decisions based on how you can help somebody grow as a person in that short little bit of time that you have with them. That's going to hook the most people the most often and get them back over and over and over again. Second most important thing is how much belongingness you can leave them with at the end of their interaction with you. How much can you make them feel like this is just their home turf? Of course they should be here. They're Norm from Cheers. If you isolate the millennials only agree with each other on anything 15% of the time. That's across 380 different metrics that we've measured. So these millennials, these unicorns in the enchanted forest that we're supposed to change our world for, they're actually so dissimilar from each other that it doesn't make any sense. They're not really a group other than for the one fact that they were born between this year, and even that we can't seem to agree on. Those kind of have gray area. That's a gray area when that period actually is. A human being of any age, randomly taken out of the database, just because you are alive and a human being, you agree with other human beings 8% of the time. So targeting millennials, it gives you a 7% advantage over just doing whatever the hell you want. So what's the point? We need to find a better system. That's what we set out to do. We call it ValueGraphics, and that's why I'm here, is to tell everybody about how it applies to the restaurant industry.